with Toonami. I was a huge fan back then with a show called Tenchi Muyo. Okay, Tenchi Muyo is a fun little anime if you guys have seen it.
What about Tenchi in Love or Tenchi in Space?
Tenchi in Tokyo.
That was the worst part of this. So they would air the series and then they would start again, but they don't tell you that they're starting again. So you're expecting, okay, this is season 2. No, it's a whole OVA. It's a whole different story, whole different series for it. One or two of these characters may not even show up anymore.
Just a reminder, this is a spoiler-heavy podcast. Different series that require a spoiler warning will be in the description.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Gaming Theater Podcast. Today's episode is going to be all about a little subject that I've been wanting to do called The Good, the Bad, and the Rebooted. Tonight, we're going to be talking all about reboots and the reboot genre and how some are good and some are bad on that for you. And it kind of depends on how the reboot handles the reboot, actually. So to that being said, I've got several guests with us that are going to assist me with this. Once again, my name is Leo. I am the Geek Scorpio, and I'll be your host this evening. And over to my right is going to be...
I'm Brandon, also called Tomatoman. I like a lot of media, like movies and games, and I like to make video stuff.
And over to their right is going to be...
Hi everyone, my name's Ben. I go by El Penguin on Gaming Theaters Present. I do the social medias that have been neglected to do better at. I'm also a fitness instructor and professional wrestler, and constantly trying to inspire others to get into the fitness journey by becoming a real-life gym leader. Behold, Detective Pikachu poster.
Oh yeah. And over to their right is going to be...
Hi, I'm Paris. I'm the only female commentator in all of the Pacific Northwest for wrestling. I make videos, talking smack, and getting to know the wrestlers. You can visit me at my Facebook.
And don't worry, we'll have links to everybody on there. But before we get started, let's take a quick trip over to the magical merch booth. Here we are on the magical merch booth, and I just wanted to give this little bit of a section to thank everybody for their patience on this. I know for the last couple of for those who are new coming into Gaming Theater Podcast or haven't listened to us recently, there was a break that we had to take for technical reasons on that, and I mean like system technical reasons. We had to. I'm one of the lead editors that we had, and I had to actually repair all my computer stuff in order to make everything work again. And so to make sure that we have a good enough show, I didn't want to just do it off cuff, so it was better for us to fix everything. So thank everybody, and thank you for all of our fans for having the patience and the grace to give me a couple months to get everything fixed for us. And that's about it. Thank you so much to our fans who've been supporting us for this long and for sticking with us this long. And we are hoping to have other episodes and cool things coming down the pipeline for you. All right. With that being said, thank you so much. And when we get back to the show. On today's episode, what we're going to be talking about is about reboots. So you kind of bump into this weird situation where a lot of people are complaining, especially nowadays, about, oh man, X, Y, and Z keeps getting rebooted, or there's so many other reboots that are down the line, almost as much as like superhero stories and superhero comic movies, and there's so many of these shows that are coming out. There's kind of a reason for that one. So doing some of the history, looking into this, is reboots happen actually pretty often. It's so often that trying to trace what's the first considered reboot is actually harder than you think. The closest thing I could find, and there's examples of even earlier than that, depending on how you define it. There was a movie back in 1903, which is called The Great Train Robbery, which is based on an actual big great train robbery done earlier that in the 1800s, which is based on a play called The Great Train Robbery. You're going to hear that sentence a lot. So the play of The Great Train Robbery was purchased by a company to turn it into a film. And when they made it into a film in 1903, not even a year later, it gets rebooted to from another film studio to make another movie that's a remake of The Great Train Robbery. So we're having a reboot for another thing that crosses genres to do this, but like depending on your source, certain other stories get rebooted. Probably the oldest one I can think of, and it sort of depends on your take, is the Arthurian Tales, because the Arthurian Tales was written once without Lancelot, and a lot of those stories got redid when Lancelot comes into play, because Lancelot, and we talked about this in our 5-man band episode, Lancelot, the Lancer, was originally a fanfic that ended up getting slid into the regular storylines.
I was gonna say, wasn't he like? I think he's more than just him, but he was the big prominent one that was kind of like injected right into the story, that he wasn't part of the original tale.
Yeah, it's where we get the term Lancer come from for when we talk about 5-man bands. So if you're having like your Red Ranger, who is going to be the main protagonist, one of these other guys are going to be the Lancer, which is the off-kilter of that main character, and that's where we get Lancers from.
I like being a Lancer in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Everyone likes the jump skill.
I just like keeping my distance.
Big, sharp, pointy, mid-range.
It's like it helps with the range when you don't have the aim to be an archer.
It's like if your favorite's Donatello, but you still want to stab, so you just take a katana, or it's not even a katana, but you know what I mean, from Leo. Ha! Tape it at the end. Yeah!
It's a system. It's not the greatest system, but it's there. All right. So reboots happen all the time. Back in the 90s, reboots happened so often because they were remakes of film adaptations to a bunch of TV shows that existed. But then you had reboots of different genres that are coming through, and even comics reboot themselves, every couple of years or so, depending on who it is. And those reboots have their reboots. It gets muddy at some point with that. So there's probably more of these examples that are out there, but from some of the research I've been able to do, there's about 5 types of reboots that are out there. There's probably more, but these are the ones that I want to focus on for this episode. So let's just and they all have their good points and bad points for it. So the first one I wanted to talk about is probably one that doesn't pop up as much as you think, but it is there. It's a reboot that is in name only. This is a reboot for a series that the only thing they took off of it is the name of the show or story that it's talking about. And there's a few of them. For example, in the 90s, we had the Mighty Ducks from Disney. You know, a group of hockey players that play hockey together, and going through these Pee-wee leagues, and apparently also at some point taking on Teen Iceland. That's just the thing that they do. Now, also in the 90s, years later, it got rebooted into an animated superhero show from anthropomorphic ducks that came from another planet that landed on Earth, and now they have to run around doing superhero things while trying to find a way to get themselves back home. Because also there is still a hockey team, like that's their disguise, and that's not even much of a disguise. They're all anthropomorphic ducks, but also at the same time they don't hide that fact. They're like, nope. The Anaheim Mighty Ducks are all just a bunch of anthropomorphic ducks. They have just enough people to fill up a hockey team by playing Iron Man hockey. Also, with that, hockey is a religion on their planet.
Oh yeah,
I remember that cartoon. Oh my god, I thought it was a fever dream.
Nope, it's a full-on reboot, but it's only a reboot in name only. It has nothing to do with the Pee-wee hockey team.
Commonly referred to as a reimagining.
Mm-hmm. The reimagining is probably the better phrase for that. This is a reboot that's a reimagining.
It's like, what if instead of a bunch of preteens, it was alien ducks?
Oh, I remember that. It was called Biker Mice from Mars.
No. Biker Mice from Mars is its own individual property. It's not a rip off of anything. But another one I bumped into was Friday the 13th, the series. In the late mid to 80s, because they had the horror film Friday the 13th, with Jason Voorhees, and on the
Right.
after the first one with Jason Voorhees' mom. The studio had the rights to Friday the 13th, and they had the pilot for a TV show that was going to be about these two brothers whose, if I remember the storyline right, their father used to own a shop and he sold cursed items for the devil. But when he died, his sons are going to go across the country to find these cursed items and bring them back to the shop, so that way they can decurse them and not be decurse them and get rid of these problems. But the studio that was flipping the bill mandated that they called it Friday the 13th, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with Jason Voorhees at all.
That's just a example of blatantly just buying a name so you can do whatever the hell you want with it. It's like that most recent The Mummy movie, where it's like, this has nothing to do in any way, shape, or form with anything from The Mummy.
Mm-hmm. Not even the original Mummy movies from Universal Studios back in, even though it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and I guess they're rebooting it again, and it's like, and at the same time doing The Mummy 4 with Brendan Fraser. It's like, guys, just drop everything except Brendan, because he's a national treasure.
No, I am looking forward to the Brendan Fraser reboot of The Mummy. So, fun fact though, The Mummy back in the 90s, that was kind of in name only. It had nothing to do with the Boris Karloff movie series at all. It's just, we are going to have The Mummy as a monster. It's not even anything close to The Mummy from the original
like the old Universal movies.
Yeah. So when you have the Universal movies, you still have like Dracula will always be played off of like Bela Lugosi's Dracula from way back when. Like, he set the standard for that. Same with kind of Frankenstein like the whole it's alive. It's not even in the book, but it is in the movie, and now we just use that line over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
But The Mummy, nothing. They're night and day.
Anaxunamun.
Yeah. A whole lot of different backstory, but yeah, nothing to do with it. So those are reboots in name only, and I don't think I can think of any other ones that are.
I have one.
Yeah.
That is the third Exorcist movie.
Oh yeah.
Because it originally was not an Exorcist movie. It was based on a book called Legion, but they shoehorned in like the father and the crazy guy was the priest, and all that crazy stuff. So that's my contribution.
That's interesting that you say that, because if we're going to include that in, like, I guess appropriation is kind of, I guess, what that would be, but it is in a way a rebooting of sorts if it's still not related to the material it's named from. You could say the same thing about Die Hard 3. That was based on a totally different book, and they just were like, John McClane, you can do it.
And Die Hard 4 is based on a short story in the tech world. Kind of yes and no. So, like, it depends. Like I said, this one gets kind of muddy depending on how much in the weeds you are. In general, in name only is literally we took the name for it. Like, The Mummy counts on that because it has nothing to do with the original Mummy movie, even though.
But is still focusing on the Mummy.
But yeah, so like for Exorcist 3, it could be. John McClane and Die Hard gets kind of muddy on that one because the first Die Hard movie is based on the book. The second Die Hard movie has nothing to do with any of the novel.
Right. I just mean that the third movie is based on a totally different book. Like, unrelated. They just were like, let's make it Die Hard anyway.
Yeah. And sometimes that's the case. Die Hard 3 is one of the best ones out there. It's amazing. Look, I want this to preface it. We're not talking quality of content for it. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're bad. Sometimes they're Brendan Fraser's Mummy movies from the 90s, peak adventure films. And they knew how to balance that horror and adventure really, really well. And it's just immaculate.
It was very much one of those, just, it's an adventure with a drop of horror.
Oh yeah, but then you can also have like movies like Ghostbusters, which is a comedy movie that's got just the right amount of horror for it. But being in name only doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. It's essentially, this is just sort of the example of what we're thinking of a reboot. Typically, and this is sort of the good thing about it, is you get for a lot of production, but mostly advertisement, you get the notoriety that comes with the name. That does not mean that you get anything else with it, and so that's the downside, is you may lose a lot of your audience because what the show is going, or TV show or stuff is going to be about, isn't what you came in for. If you're looking to go see Friday the 13th series and expected Jason Voorhees to show up, he's never showing up. It's not.
You're gonna have a bad time.
You mean they didn't freeze him and shoot him into space?
No, that they definitely did.
Okay, because I thought that was a fever dream.
The amount of times Jason X comes up in our podcast,
Because
it's more
absurd.
than one. But it is showing up.
Like, yeah, let's take the supernatural serial killer and shoot him into space.
I mean, it got rid of the problem, didn't it?
You know, I feel like that's just some sort of alternate branch of jumping the shark. Is like, we went to space.
There's a whole thing.
Like,
we should do an episode of, but in space.
Like, I'm more surprised we haven't done that yet. And it's like, guys, come on. Even Fast and the Furious went to space at some point.
Yeah, and there was no point to that in that movie.
I know Gilligan Island went to space. No joke. There's an animated series which is Gilligan Island, but in space.
I was like, I do not remember this from the serialized show.
Nope. Because that's a whole series for itself to be in space. All right. So, moving on. The next one I want to talk about, but anyway, that's the good and the bad for it. I think the best part you get for it is you get the notoriety. Like, you get to see that there's something coming up for that. However, the worst thing about it is, if you were expecting to have that show or that series to be on there, it's not ever going to show up, buddy.
Ooh, you know what's a great one, though, too? That if Liz were here, she would defend to the death.
Oh?
I know you guys can figure this one out.
It's not Mad Max.
Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within. A reboot in name only.
Kind of. Okay, so
it has similar elements, and it's a media jump.
So you can't count that.
Why not? I'm curious on why.
Okay, let me show you why. No Final Fantasy is like the next Final Fantasy.
Yes, however,
that's the point of the Final Fantasy for it.
It's tonally different in every way from what we expect from Final Fantasy. It's generally going to start off as a high fantasy of sorts adventure that sprinkles in science fiction as you get further into it. You have mystical creatures throughout it, including, but not limited to, chocobos, behemoths, cactuars, and so on.
So I'll get to that one in a second, because that's a different reboot that we'll talk about. That's not in name only, but it's similar to.
As long as we can agree that it fits into the bracket.
Oh, it's definitely a reboot. Technically, Final Fantasy is a series that reboots itself. What are we on? 16?
Oh no, you forgot the spin-offs or the ones that don't have a name, like Agito. Or Type 0, excuse me.
At least 16, and that's the numbered ones.
There you go. Yes, at least 16 times.
At least 16. All right, so moving on to the next one. Now, in name only means that it would have almost nothing to do with that. The next type of reboot is a continuation reboot. Now, this is a fun one, because this is what got me started with that. Scrubs, the new series that's out right now for Hulu, is a continuation reboot. But you also have other series that do that, where there's a time skip. Typically, it's a time skip. And whatever's the next part of that reboot is going to be part of that storyline. Technically speaking, Star Trek, The Next Generation, is a reboot to Star Trek. And it's a continuation for it. Because the original show ended in about, I think, mid to late 60s is when that show ended.
I think it was mid, because I think it started in, what was it, like, was it 59?
No, it started later than 59. It started in the 60s.
It started in the 60s, okay. I thought it was, like, at the tail end of the 50s for some reason.
You know, I think another really good continuation reboot, and can't wait for the next couple seasons to come back out again, is the greatest American anime series of all times. No, not Avatar, not even Corey in the House. We're talking King of the Hill.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Cory in the House.
No, King of the Hill has been famously almost referenced as like an anime, but for Texas.
It is the
Whoa!
Texas anime. But having it come back is like, oh no. At this point, King of the Hill right now is King of the Hill Shippuden.
Yeah.
All right, Bobby is a grown ass man right now. He was in middle school last we saw him sneaking into high school. Now he's a man and a chef and lives in Dallas.
Mhm. But I mean, also to that extent, Naruto is a continuation reboot because like you have Naruto Shonen, and then you have Naruto.
It's
Boruto.
Boruto. I mean, you could argue that it's hard to really say it's hard to say it's a continuation reboot when you're looking at Naruto to Shippuden, because really that's just Shippuden is just indicating the time skip that occurred in the manga. But with Boruto, you've got just straight up a full new name, but it is a continuation rebooting the whole concept for a new generation.
Yeah, typically if you're having a continuation of it, but the important thing is the continuation of the story.
Yeah.
Time skip is the most common of that.
Right, or just like a late revival. Like, let's say they finally do High School of the Dead Season 2. They're not going to.
But I mean, there's always a shot. I mean,
if they did, then that'd be like at this point, it would be considered a reboot but a continuation.
Mm-hmm. Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball.
Oh my god!
Any of the Dragon Ball series, yeah. There's big time jumps that go between them, and it's such a big jump that they still reference their old stuff. The important thing for a continuation reboot is reference. The things that happened in the past still exist. Probably the biggest reboot is Doctor Who. Doctor Who stopped its series in after the 7th Doctor and had to try to reboot again with the 8th Doctor, and then had to reboot a second time with the 9th Doctor, and then we have New Who.
You could almost even argue that every season it reboots. It's like Final Fantasy the season.
It's honestly, it's an interesting way to restart your episodes for a new audience, but they don't forget what happened with the past information. Like, that's the important thing for that one.
It's almost like the loosest version, in my opinion, of a reboot, because it is really just continuing what was already there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I do see where it's a reboot, because, like you said, it's like reintroducing it in a new way, but it's not forgetting what they've already done. So it's like a continuation more than a reboot, but at the same time, they're treating it like it's a reboot, but they're not. It's such a weird gray area one, but it definitely falls in here for sure.
For the record, Star Trek started in '66 and ended in 1969. Okay. I knew it was
a short run. I just couldn't remember when it started.
Yeah, it's kind of like the thing with Star Trek is kind of like has the same weird situation as the Beatles. It is the Beatles for music has changed genre and changed so much, but people forget the Beatles' career as the Beatles is, I think, not even 5 years. Star Trek, for example, has completely redefined science fiction, and we won't have something that big again, especially in the science fiction media, until Star Wars. But the show only ran for 3 to 4 seasons. But yeah, no, they rebooted themselves because Star Trek started, and then it waits till due to the fan interest, they ended up deciding, because it's after they decided to do this weird thing where they're going to make Star Trek films. Like the first one's in like 78, 79, but then they're going to make a series of films. But the popularity of it made it so that way Paramount wanted to get back to a new show, and to do that, they started with The Next Generation, and the Next Generation, and there is a clear time difference between the two series. And because of that clear time difference, it's still the same, but the stuff that happened in the OG Star Trek, they don't go back to, because that part has already been explored, so we're moving forward.
Hence the subtitling that they add to them.
Exactly. And then but that's the biggest part where it's a continuation to reboot is next gen. After next gen, we just don't have they're not following the same crew. They're not even following the Enterprise for them.
I was gonna say, I think only one of the other ones follows the Enterprise, and then everything else is like a whole different ship doing other stuff.
Yeah, Voyager is Lost in Space, and
Deep Space Nine.
Deep Space Nine is more about stationary, being
Yeah.
an actual station there. Technically, one of my favorites is, which honestly it doesn't get enough credit for as its storyline, but it's a genius story, which is the Lower Decks, because Lower Decks is about the not popular ships, or specifically, it's not about the Enterprise because it is not the one who makes first contact. It's not one of their flagships. It's one of the California classes, which is basically shipping. That's all it really does, is for most of its job. It does what all the bureaucracy that you need to do to make everything work.
We got your socks, your shoes.
Mm-hmm. Here's your thing. Here's your buttons to hit, so that way you can talk to the Starfleet if you need to. And posing it as a comedy is just hilarious. But the thing is, those are still continuations of the story of what's going on in the Star Trek universe. They're just, even though they don't have the Enterprise and its original crew has been changed over and over again at this point.
Introducing it to a different audience too, since the focus is on comedy. And if I remember right, that one's primarily animated, right?
Lower Decks is, you have to say primarily animated because there's a crossover episode where they go to Strange New Worlds, and I love this
to make sure
because
I was remembering that correctly.
Yeah, because essentially they, from what I understand from the writers, one of the things that they get told that their voice actors look a lot like their characters in the series, so they made an episode made a time travel episode where two of the voice actors actually plays themselves in there.
I think it was like a 300-year time jump back, right? Or something like that.
Well, after next gen, after Voyager, but they're going back to OG, which is about 200 plus years before, just after To Strange New Worlds, which is before classic Trek.
Yeah, because in that one, like, the Enterprise is a legendary ship. It's like...
Yeah. Enterprise D, because we're not changing the name. You get a new subclass.
Well, the Enterprise, I think, didn't that one become a class after that? Because it was a whole different...
No.
No? Okay.
Officially, it's a Constitution class. And if we keep going on this will be a Star Trek episode.
You're right. So,
and we'll save that for another day.
Onward to resets.
But back to resets for this one. But yeah, so like other continuation reboots, Stargate SG-1, to moving from the movie and what happens after the movie. It's another good one for that one. And then they have Atlantis and such. Scrubs is another good one like that because it's doing pretty well.
Malcolm
I noticed you put down Quantum Leap as well.
Quantum Leap had a reboot on it, which it was specifically same universe, same time stream for it. So Next Generation, Naruto, and some of these ones that we talk about are ones that did really well and continue going. Not all of them are winners. Quantum Leap was not a big deal with a lot of Quantum Leap fans because of how much they changed the genre just to make the episodes work, which miffed a lot of people for it. Just because you can do a continuation doesn't mean that it's going to be good for that. The only difference is that you have structure for your continuation on that. I haven't seen any of the their Wizards of Waverly Places reboot that they did.
Yeah, I was not expecting that to make a comeback out of nowhere.
Yeah, who knew that was the one?
But then again, I also wasn't expecting iCarly to come back as well.
Yeah, that kind of came out of left field, right?
Would the Malcolm in the Middle?
Yep.
Oh my God! Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord! That was something.
So continuation reboot, and if you guys are in the same boat that I'm at, the biggest advantage of that is you have stuff that's already established, and you can move forward from that. And as we mentioned with the Star Trek one, you don't even technically have to move forward with your original cast. You could just change everything, but you still keep the world and the storylines the same for it. The biggest downside for it is now you have a how do I want to say this? Preconception
Oh,
of how
pre-established.
or preconception of how the show goes.
Yeah.
You deviate too far, people are not going to like it. That's what happened with Quantum Leap. A lot of it's not even its main storyline, but it's a lot of their like lore for their and for how time travel and things work gets pushed aside to make the story work, and it's kind of rough. Like Ziggy, their main computer, is not as big of a thing in their second season for some reason, even though it runs most of Quantum Leap of the
I'd
product.
also say probably part of the reason it didn't do well is because it didn't have that subtitling to it. There was a certain, like you said, preconception of what the show was supposed to be. So without it having a subtitle, people are like, "Oh, it's just more of that."
Yeah. Like, if you want to accept something like that, is prequels and sequels that we bumped into for Metal Gear Solid. If they did that without the stealth element, might as well not even. It is completely a different thing, and no one's going to let.
I mean, people would probably like it just because it's in the world, but at the same time, it's like, this is Metal Gear Solid. Why am I not sneaking?
Mm-hmm. No, you can get away with it. That's not.
There's a way.
But I'm just saying, for it's a preconception is one of its biggest hurdles to get over.
Yeah, I mean, you're setting yourself up for failure in a lot of respects.
Mm-hmm. But also, the nice thing about it is that you can keep going forward from what they have on it.
Yeah.
SGU, Stargate Universe, took the Stargate storyline so far away from Earth that a lot of people started, because that wasn't the point of the series, that it's now like, and they have a completely different tone as being more of a dramatic show instead of like a sci-fi adventure show like Atlantis was and SG-1. So it ended up doing it didn't do very well as far from the rest of the Stargate series because of that. But that was a choice that they made, and that was a thing that happened. All right. So that's one of the big ups and downs for that one. And we've got some examples of that one. Now, the next one I want to go over is number 3, which is the full reset reboot. We're not just rebooting the series. We're rebooting everything. Everything that happens. You'll see this a ton in comics when they want to start a whole new storyline for something. The Absolute series, and DC does it all the time. That's just a thing DC does.
What do they do that like every 4 issues or something?
That's the kind of the joke for that one. But DC, like the first, so and everyone, and we've talked about this before. The first big one, big reboot that they wanted to do for everybody was to do Crisis on Infinite Earth. We've got to reset the entire thing for it because we've got 30, 40 years of canon that is now getting so badly jumbled we can't get any new people in there. There is 3 different Robins, there's 2 different Robins running around from 2 different parallel Earths that are still going through each other, and we don't know how, and they're crossing over a lot, and it gets messy on it. Also, yeah, Crisis on Infinite Earths is a good story, though.
Oh, yeah.
And you can make a big event for it. The Arrowverse did a Crisis in order to try to...
Oh, God.
Don't they do that like twice in the
No,
Arrowverse?
once.
Only
so,
once?
like, the idea was this originally. And this is
Elseworlds. I'm getting that mixed up.
Yeah, you're getting that mixed up with Elseworlds, which is different. Elseworlds is just its own storyline, like a.
It's the same but different, yeah.
Yeah, it's whatever different. We're gonna change one little thing and see how the rest of this plays out. No, what happens is that they did a Crisis on Infinite Earths, and their goal was to take the because for those who don't know, Arrowverse is actually 5 shows altogether.
Don't make me count.
Arrow, Flash,
Arrow,
Supergirl,
Flash.
Black Lightning, and Legends of Tomorrow. Yep, 5.
Oh no, because Superman. Superman and Lois.
Superman and Lois, but that happens after that. After
Batgirl.
Yeah,
Batwoman.
but it's still
Batwoman is
it's still part of the canon.
It's still part of the canon. Superman and Lois
Right.
and Batwoman. That was the other one. Ultimately, the Arrowverse's world is it doesn't have Batman in it. That's one of the big things. And Superman isn't on Arrow's world, but it is in Supergirl's world. And these are all separate worlds. And so what happens is the idea, because of that, by doing Crisis, they can combine them into one universe and then make it so that way they can have their shows cross over whenever they want to without having to make the writing to say that they cross over. And as a fun fact, one of the and it's blink and then you miss it. It's something that Cisco talks about. Almost every villain that after Crisis, due to a technicality, every villain that has passed away or died previously is all come back now as part of this, as like an aftermath from doing the crossover. So if they ever want to write a story to bring back like some of their older villains who have gone away, they can do that and not have to worry about it.
It's because the Speed Force is too strong, man.
The crossover is so hard they brought back all their villains.
But so honestly, Crisis was a fun series that they did for that, but it's what happens after Crisis, and I don't think they had a good. I know from some of the background for it is essentially the CW Arrowverse series. They were not having as big of an audience draw as they thought it would be, and shows were starting to get planned to be cut out left and right for it. It was Arrow was the first one, but they were going to do that anyway because it goes on for I think 7 seasons or so. They were going to wrap it up anyway.
I think it kind of overstayed its welcome just a little bit.
But once Arrow started going away, Black Lightning went out pretty quickly with its 3rd or 4th season, but its writing was kind of on the wall for that one. The only one to survive that was Superman and Lois, and essentially they just let that start after everything that was going on.
And that was going to ran its course anyway, though. That they didn't outright cancel that. They actually had the plan for it, I think.
Yeah, so then the thing is that making a superhero show based upon a DC property, unless you are already working for Warner Brothers, gets expensive to license everything.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why they did what they do, and then it becomes and also one of the big litigation things is that you can only use certain characters for certain things on that. Like they could not have Batman on TV, but there's a weird, funny thing about that because technically you can't do that unless you're Fox.
Yeah, it's the same reason why like there's all that weird stuff with Spider-Man and Sony and the MCU for so long, and with Fantastic Four and how that was like trapped in hell for so long.
Yeah, they just had to keep recycling that movie.
Yeah.
But then you get caught up in rights, and at some point it was just not financially viable to keep making all these the CW style Arrowverse shows, and then they just started dying out for it. But they did make that reboot. That was the important thing, is that they did this big event to reboot it to get all the worlds combined. New 52 for DC Comics, which they basically do the same thing again to reboot. And I think the newest series, Absolute, is now where they rebooted a lot of people's stuff and made slight changes for things. The Ultimates for the Marvel series is another one. Both of the Ultimates.
I see you've got anime OVAs there. Honestly, I would say JoJo, because you had Stardust Crusaders in like '93 as an OVA set, and I think it only aired half of it before it was pulled, but they did finish it for an English like setup. So it only aired the last half in English, and I think recently you could find like the first half as well with it. But then when they finally did like the full series and they started with part 1, everyone was just so excited for when you got to part 3, because that was finally going to get, do justice.
Like, yeah, literally the big part of JoJo. But also, not to mention, like, every JoJo is literally just a continuous thing until...
It's a reboot continuation of itself with every single part, because it's still following a character named JoJo. The story is continuing forward, but it's a whole new everything, because you're following a bloodline.
Which is fine. Castlevania, actually, if you think about it, is also a continuation reboot.
Oh.
And
I wish we thought about that back in continuation reboots, because that made more sense then.
Like they jump the hell around though, man. I mean,
Castlevania, yeah.
Well, yeah, like Castlevania 1 is Simon's like the great grandchild of Trevor from Castlevania 3.
Not that far along, but yes.
I don't remember the exact number. Don't ask semantics. It's like a 200-year jump.
There's a ton of them.
And then they go back in the PS2. They go back even further with Lament of Innocence.
Mm-hmm. But so like full reboot ones, like the reason why I would put OVA for it is remember Toonami back in the day?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
With Toonami, I was a huge fan back then with a show called Tenchi Muyo. Okay. Tenchi Muyo is a fun little anime if you guys have seen it.
What about Tenchi in Love or Tenchi in Space?
Tenchi in Tokyo.
That was the worst part of this. So they would air the series and then they would start again, but they don't tell you that they're starting again. So you're expecting, okay, this is season 2. No, it's a whole OVA. It's a whole different story, whole different series for it. One or two of these characters may not even show up anymore.
I got so confused with that crap, man.
It was years later I found out, okay, when Toonami aired it, they aired the OVA first, then the actual show, and then another OVA. And then Tenchi in Tokyo is a third OVA of those OVAs.
Wow, I never knew that.
Yeah, so I think it's the second series, which is Tenchi in Love, but that's actually the main series for it.
I'm trying to remember.
Well, that was the thing. So the OVA is the first one that they show you, and then they restart in the second series, and that's the one where Kione shows up. But Kione is only there for the main series. That wasn't there for one of the OVAs, and so drove me nuts as a kid because that was so messy of a thing for that. And I'm like, okay, which one is which? Oh, don't worry, I'll get it on DVD, but this is 90s anime DVDs. Good luck on that one.
Oh, I was surprised you didn't say VHS.
Oh, no, I needed the whole series.
Oh, see, no.
It was great in there.
I was that dude who would walk uphill both ways to Walmart to buy Dragon Ball GT Volume 2.
But yeah, so like this is what we're talking about for a full reset reboot. It's like, oh no, we're just restarting the whole thing. Bring it on back, guys.
Now, that's not always a success. I think there might even be more failures than successes. Some really big ones that really stood out to me when I saw the full reset on here was the Power Rangers movie from 2017.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Oh my god.
Like that had all the potential in the world.
That happened.
And then it got dropped like I don't even know what, but boy, did it not do good.
Mm-hmm. I liked it. I'm gonna put that out there.
It's like it was
I
definitely
enjoyed it.
enjoyable in its own way. Like it definitely was, but it was nowhere near that campiness that we all know and love from the actual Power Ranger series.
It comes down to that preconceived conception when you don't have the subtitle. Like you're expecting another big screen Power Rangers movie with more money behind it, and it's like, oh wait, this is like hyper serious. What's happening? But you also have it with games. I mean, look at Capcom in the late 2000s, and early 2010s. You had the DMC Devil May Cry, which was, boy, when that got revealed, that got a lot of backlash, and then it got better with their other trailers, but everybody hated it. And much like with Leo in the Power Rangers movie, I played DMC Devil May Cry, and I really liked it. My only complaint was that you had to hold the triggers to switch your weapons. You couldn't just tap to cycle your weapon. And then you've got Bionic Commando, which makes everyone have a hernia.
Now, not all these are bad. Evil Dead has a couple of reboots on there, but it made sense because the reboot for that one, even though it's a full reboot, is to have the series without the main character in there.
Without Ash.
And that's because Bruce Campbell is too old. It is taxing to play Ash on that.
Well, and let's face it, no one can follow him up.
No. So instead, you can just reboot it without it. And honestly, the first Evil Dead remake, pretty good. I liked it a lot.
It's a true return to form because, I mean, Evil Dead started as like an over-the-top, like grotesque, serious horror thing and evolved into Hail to the King, baby.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, but then because they wanted to go more comedy route because they didn't want to stick with the horror. Now the remake is pure horror for that one. And I still need to see Rise, but the Evil Dead remake, I have seen that one. That is amazing for that. But yeah, so you can have that as a full reset reboot, and sometimes there's different reasons for why you would do that. for good and bad. The thing that probably makes a full reset like one of its biggest pros is that if it's handled well, the reset is very, very accepted for that, right? Like, for a lot, especially for comics, it's a way to restart your series so other people can get into that. Spider-Man gets rebooted all the time, and for better or worse, depending on which ones that are out there. Like Tom Holland, which they resetted the whole thing to make him work for the MCU, only works because he's with the MCU and other players that are other MCU characters on there. But then it gives you an opening to do the Spider-Verse with Miles Morales as your main character instead of having to do that. It's a full-on reboot.
That's a great continuation reboot, actually.
It's technically all it's a continuation and it's a full-on reboot for that as well.
Jeez, yeah, boy. What do you call it when you start putting them in the blender? Jeez.
These can overlap sometimes, but in general, like the full reset reboot's biggest advantage is the fact that you can redo the whole series and start from a different have a different point A starting point. There's a Disney Plus just recently did a new Spider-Man series, and it takes place in Spider-Man is in school. But one of the things that is different is the radioactive spider is a spider that, and this is a spoiler-heavy podcast, it turns out the spider is a spider that's going to come, that bites Peter from the future in a fight that he gets involved with Doctor Strange with, which he hasn't gotten to yet.
What?
Wow.
He's his own causality for it. No, not his own grandfather.
Yeah,
he's his own causality. All right, yeah, I guess. It's funny when they do that fight because you see Doctor Strange in the first episode, and when you get to the end where he's trying to take on this, taking on him and Spider-Man teaming up to take on one of the symbionts, they're like, he's like, you know what? You keep complaining that I destroyed this school. I don't know what you're talking about, and it's because he uses the time gem to go back in time, and that's when he destroys the school by accident.
I'm just imagining it's like in a later episode, he's like, when it happens, oh, I get it now, and then they just move on.
Like, that kind of happened in that series. It's really good though. But the thing is that
if they do that,
they take a lot of different liberties for that. But then Spider-Man gets rebooted mostly to modernize him because Spider-Man works great with a newer audience. He is very easy to attach as a character. Now, you have Spider-Man, as far as Marvel properties, is usually handled with gloves, with kid gloves and such, especially when it's a visual medium, because he's such a valuable property. However, handled incorrect, it's not hard to handle a full reboot incorrectly. You do that, and you start unraveling a ton of things for that. Like, that's sort of the catch to that. You get a full reboot, you can restart everything for it, but then you could just, the whole thing could just fail on it. Like we saw with the Power Rangers. Didn't have enough backing, and it failed on its own.
You could also say I think a lot of full resets kind of fall into tonal reboot issues, too.
Yeah, we'll get to that one, too. Another big reset, but one I want to mention that people don't think about, the Muppets. They have to get rebooted every so often.
Oh.
Like a lot of the Muppet movies. So Muppet movies were in a big decline because they kind of reboot their own storyline every so often. And it's not until the movie The Muppets that we start getting back into wanting more Muppet stuff. And which is hilarious. And it's from somebody who, I'm trying to remember his name.
Wait, Jason Segel?
Jason Segel, yeah. So Jason Segel wrote the script for the movie The Muppets, and you can trace him wanting to do the movie The Muppets as the key point of when Muppets starting to get back into the mainstream again. Mm-hmm. It's just because he wanted to do the movie with the Muppets, but he understood how the Muppets work as their own entity for it. It's kind of, from what I'm told, it's taxing to as an actor to work with Muppets sometimes because you're not working with who the Muppet's playing at. You're working with that Muppet who their mannerisms are with that character. All right. So with that, let's move on to the next section on this, which this next one is going to be about tonal reboot. Now, tonal reboot is where we reboot the series, but we're rebooting it in order for it to establish a particular tone. Probably my best example for that is how professional wrestling works from the 80s to now. So like there's the first era is like the Superstars era, right? Back in the 80s. I think it's called the Superstars era for WWE.
No, I'm remembering this one because like the biggest one who suffered the shift of this tonal reboot was The Rock, because he was really raised in the area where like everyone was very gimmicky, everyone was really like bright colorly, big baby faces. But then by the time he actually made his debut as Rocky Maivia, the tonal shift has started to go towards like a lot grungier, the Attitude Era, especially since the Austin 316 thing happened. So he comes out here trying to be the happy-go-lucky babyface. People do not care about that anymore. They want someone to come by as like, you know what, give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah. But yeah, so like that's just the thing. Now, the thing is that the Attitude Era gets into the ruthless aggression, which is even more aggressive, blood and violence that comes out of that. But I know it's when they get a chance to go back on network television, like I think it's that they have to tone everything down to like a PG. It's called the PG era, where they have to tone back down on that.
So before that one, there actually came a celebrity era.
Oh yeah,
between the ruthless aggression and going PG, because they were just bringing everyone and anyone as they can. It didn't matter. It is funny that you did mention the Muppets, because the Muppets did show up at Raw before.
Yeah, and
everyone played it as serious as a heart attack. Apparently now in WWE lore, Sheamus is cousins to Beaker.
Yep. I remember that. That was a whole thing, and it was funny. But they played it serious. But yeah, so like that's one of the things is that they change their standing mostly for tone, and it's typically on there's different reasons for that. The Attitude Era was changed to be more aggressive and such, and more appealing to to teens and to aggressive teens and such, because they were the ones that were watching professional wrestling back then. But in order for them to I want to say it's because they wanted to get them to a different network. But one of the things is that they had to tone it down in order to get into those other networks. And so it ebbs and flows. Because Rocky Maivia, which great example for that one is I think it's called the New Generation Era. I might be wrong with that one. Yep, no, New Generation Era, 93 to 97. So the New Generation Era is when he shows up, but the gimmick era for it was going out of style, and they have to ebb and flow for that. The Attitude Era, you could not, in the New Generation Era, there was no way you would be able to do something like Extreme Wrestling, but there's an audience for it. But then everything started to lean towards that once we get to the Attitude Era. And arguably, the most watched era is the Attitude Era.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so like they're just changing it up for tone. That's the key thing on that one. Other things that you can do, Scooby-Doo, and when it goes to Scooby-Doo Incorporated, they went with a more dramatic and serious and a more serious tone than they've had from their more cartoony hijinks.
I just didn't know how I didn't think of Scooby-Doo.
Yeah,
because there's been so many versions
itself for it.
Right, but even I remember having points in my life where like I was watching different versions of Scooby-Doo at the same time.
Mm-hmm. But Mystery Inc. is an amazing series. If you get the chance, if anyone of the audience, if you want to watch one that is just a fun play, but also has a good storyline going for it, Mystery Inc. is a continuation storyline. Because most of Scooby-Doo is episodic. You watch one episode, it's done, you're good to go for the next episode. But not Mystery Inc. That's one of its tone shifts for it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles changes its tone a lot.
Oh my god!
Because 87 cartoons is far more family friendly than say the OG comics. People have died in the OG comics. Shredder is gone, like gone by the first at the end of the first issue, and then they had to like bring him back because he was unalived in the first issue.
I as a kid, I would always remember like any single time that the turtles have a universal crossover episodes with other sets of turtles, because that has to happen every other decade or so. One thing that's always consistent: everyone's getting their asses kicked by the OG turtles.
OG turtles are.
It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter if they outnumbered them like 3-1, because even that OG Leo is narrating to like, yeah, Donatello takes out at least a third of them with his bow staff. It was amazing. And then you see it happen. It's like, you see, this Donatello. He's the smart one. He's the nerd. If he can take out all you guys, what does that mean about the rest of you?
Now, other tonal ones that I know of is in comics. I'm going to go back to comics a lot, but it's going to be going from the Silver Age to the Bronze Age. In the Silver Age, we have villains such as the Condiment King show up. Literally a guy who shoots condiments at people. Sportsmaster was a joke of a guy who just used sports themes. So you had themes for your villains. If your villain doesn't have a theme, why are they here? I'm here to rob banks. And I robbed them with a goose. And that's why I'm called the Mother Goose Gang. All right, now you can play with this.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
And then they have the goose gun and various goose things. I don't even know if that's a real character, but that's how the Silver Age worked. The Bronze Age, though, is a lot more darker tone and serious for what they're like. They're gangsters, other people that they're taking on, political enemies and such. Not the Silver Age. No, you're a joke in the Silver Age.
Like, hey kids, want us to introduce you to the criminal underground? Like, what happened to Calendar Man? Calendar Man's dead. Aww.
Well, so Calendar Man's a serial killer theme. You know what? Calendar Man would not work in a Silver Age comic.
Of course.
Calendar Man in Silver Age comic would rob a bank, and it would be calendar themed. Oh, Joker was a laugh in the Silver Age. We don't mess with Joker in the current age, but that's how that one worked out for it. But yeah, so you're just taking the same storyline, but you're going to change its tone because of how typically it has how audiences' reception to that tone is, or for some reason you need to adjust it for an audience's reception. Turtles wouldn't be as big of a thing as it is now if it wasn't for making it more family friendly and it's cartoony. But then the Turtles movie is the first movie is one of the highest grossing independent films of all time. So, and it's much more darker. So you take what you can get. Keep in mind that these are all tonal shifts. You can go up or down.
It makes me think of like the Disney stories, because a lot of them came from the Grimm fairy tales, and then having to reboot them to make them more kid friendly so they could be more marketable, and now they're regarded as classics. Would that count?
Oh yeah, that's so. That is there is a. It used to be called the TV tropes have this. There is going one way or another. There is grimmification, where you make something darker and edgier than it needs to be, or you go the opposite, where you take that same dark story and make it more family friendly, and that was called Disneyfication. So yeah, Beauty and the Beast is not the same as the regular Beauty and the Beast. Any of those Grimm stories, if they come out alive, that is a good day. Waiting for their Hansel and Gretel, because that did not work out well for those two.
No, it did not.
If you want to keep your childhood wholesome, don't look up what an OG mermaid is. If you want to mess yourself up and you want to have bad nightmares, go ahead. Look up what an OG mermaid is.
Oh god, like Hunchback of Notre Dame. Now that's
god, that is some feels.
Wait, which one? The Disney or the not Disney?
The not Disney.
But yeah, Disney works off of changing out how they do their tone for that all the time. So the next one I want to talk about, and this is sort of the last one I wanted to bring up, is the soft reboot. The soft reboot is kind of an interesting concept because you're only rebooting a portion of your story. And so a soft reboot lets you retell parts and pieces of your story for it. So, like, for example, in Marvel, there's a character called Silk, who's this woman who also has spider powers. There's also this villain that's called, I think his name is the Thousand, who's from Spider-Man. So, in the original storyline, Peter gets bitten by the radioactive spider, but he loses that spider. Okay, he doesn't know what happened to it. He assumes that he's pretty certain it died. Silk is a person who, after the spider bites Peter, it flies off of Peter and bites somebody else, and the other person is this girl, and she becomes Silk.
Oh.
And also, that same original spider gets eaten by this bully that Peter knew, and it mutates his body, so he's 1,000 spiders on it. Not to be confused with Spider's Man, which is 1,000 spiders who think they're Peter Parker. But that's a different universe for that. But no, so like
the Spider-Verse has some interesting spider people.
like Spider-Verse has some interesting tales, but Silk is not part of the Spider. Is from the OG storyline. She's part of that. She's just recently introduced though, because the first Spider-Man comics in the '60s, Silk is a more 2000s era thing. But the way they soft rebooted is, instead of the spider just dying right away in the original story, the spider went off, bit somebody else, and then keeled over. And just what happened to the spider, as far as everybody knows, and in almost all the Spider-Man spider stories, is that spider passes away at some point somewhere.
After biting several more people.
If you want something crazy like that, try Spider Island. That's a weird storyline. That's everybody gets spider powers.
I'll check it out.
But that's sort of the thing. They reboot that the spiders still manage to go off to bite another person to create a new character in this time. Or another one, Wolverine. They did a soft reboot because Wolverine's thing until about the 90s, 2000s, no one knew what his origin story was. It was part of his appeal. And literally, this is and it's written in his book Origin for Wolverine. The way that they did it is the writers knew, and Marvel knew, that, well, these movie properties are being made and such, and let's go ahead and give Wolverine a proper origin story before somebody else beats us to getting into origin story, and they think that's the real way to go. And now we have his actual name, James Howlett, and that he's from 1800s. But they did that soft reboot to let everybody know, hey, this is how he works for that.
That's another one that I can think of. That would be God of War. Because you go from the killer Spartan God of War Kratos to Norse mythology, still rough around the edges, but softer, papa of a boy.
Yeah, they soft rebooted him into being a more gentler giant than he was as the... God of War also does a soft reboot, because the first God of War is literally written as a Greek tragedy, but the second and third one do not follow that same path.
No.
They're like, nope, we're going to town. But yeah, soft reboots are telling your same story, but keeping most of the aspects, but changing parts of it so you can play around with some of their storyline. Comics do this a lot because they want to introduce other characters, but they want to do that in a way that makes sense to the storyline. Sometimes your soft reboot can fail. Halloween 3, which has nothing to do with Michael Myers whatsoever. Actually, that would be more of an in name and only in that thing now that I think about it. But yeah, it's the idea behind that this is something that can happen to anybody. Soft reboots don't happen nearly as often in film. Well, so a soft reboot for a lot of films is like probably the James Bond series, where they soft reboot how James Bond becomes James Bond.
I know someone was just talking about it earlier, but it's called Pokemon Horizons. Yeah, where, much like your changing genre things, we get used to the usual Ash Ketchum his adventures, and there's usually a lot of slapstick comedy stuff. But no, for the Pokemon Horizons and all that, still meant for a younger audience, but my goodness, they go through some very serious situations. Like, I think right now a lot of them are where the curler at. is they're trying to clear their name because everyone in the world thinks their group are terrorists. It's like, you guys remember the days where all we had to worry about is, oh, what do we need to do to beat this next gym and figure out type advantage? Because it's as if he hasn't tried doing that before. Now this time, we got to clear our name because everyone thinks that we essentially caused a pseudo apocalypse in the world, and now Pokemon are going crazy.
That's a thing for that one. Yeah, soft reboots are just changing in small portions of your storyline. DBC does Dragon Ball Z does that, where one of the soft reboots is that they introduce Android 16, which isn't in any of the rest of the story. They just like Dr. Gero made one more robot. I think it's 16 is the big one with who likes animals.
Yes.
Okay. For some reason I was thinking it's 19, but I know that's wrong because Gero is 20. But yeah, and they do it within themselves. Or if you see a character that shows up, but their storyline starts as being a flashback, that's a soft reboot for it. Yeah, they were here this whole time. Derp.
Brooks from live action One Piece.
I mean, hold on, because the live action One Piece is going through the One Piece story, but it's like we are getting like different versions of like what's going on. Because they're still in the same adventure, but now we got a couple things here and there. Because one big important thing that people always highlighted in the beginning was the introduction to Garp on the beginning, where in the series you don't see like he's maybe mentioned by name, but he's not. You don't even see him at all until maybe the end of the 4th or 5th arc.
No, that would count. It's going for another medium, and they're changing it around. Like the character's still there, the storyline's still there. They're just soft rebooted it to make certain changes. iShield 21 when they went from the manga to the anime, and this is something that does happen a lot. It's the manga will go one way, and they do a soft reboot to introduce certain characters in earlier than they need to in their series.
Yeah, no, because I remember when I was starting to watch the iShield 21 anime, it didn't take long for things to start throwing me off because I've gone through the manga like a number of times, so it's just like okay, I know how the story goes, and then all of a sudden, the rollerblading sister, like she just appears within 10 episodes. Like hold up, we're not supposed to see you into the Americas
until you're in like arc 4 or 5. Like you're deep into the story when she finally shows up. But before that, no. In the anime, she comes up really early. Other characters will do that as well. In Cowboy Bebop in the manga series, there were other characters that they left out or that would show up later in the series, but they needed to bring them in earlier for some reason in the animated series. And that can happen because an animated series has so many episodes that they need to do, and if they're doing the same story, they want to get these characters out going on it. That was the one I was trying to remember. It's like that's the big thing for anime and manga. When they alternate, they will usually to introduce certain characters earlier in the series, so that way they show up and readjust their writing for it. But yeah, that's how soft reboots tend to work out. Is you're just mostly doing this to change certain parts of your storylines for that. So that's about all I've got right now for reboots for it. Reboots happen all the time. One Day at a Time has a reboot where instead of it being a single mother in, I think it's Pittsburgh or New York, it's someone who ex-military who's a nurse who's Cuban. And sometimes that's just the reboot. The Mod Squad was a reboot that popped up in the 90s as a film. Didn't do worked better as a TV show. Didn't do it very well as a film for that. Sometimes they stay the same, but it's also kind of different, like the Dukes of Hazzard reboot for it. I think one of the best reboots out there on there is two I have in mind. Scrubs is an amazing reboot because the time skip that they have is important to the whole story of Scrubs, what happens to JD. It's so important that they took the last season that JD is not part of and just threw it out. We're not even going to talk about that season. It is gone.
Never existed. It's just a
never existed. But we're bringing everyone else back for this one. But that time skip is Dr. Cox being the chief, the medical chief, and he wants to give that position to JD because he sees JD as the only person that would care enough about medical stuff as he did, and he's his protege. The other one, though, and I've got to mention this, DuckTales' reboot is amazing.
Oh God, yes, that was just a fantastic watch to go through.
The saddest part of the DuckTales reboot is the fact that it didn't have a season 4, because if it got to season 4, the next thing that the writers wanted to do was get through Negaduck, and it would be more about Darkwing in that season. Had a shot. We could have had that, but we don't. And so those are some of the best reboots because they take everything into consideration for that reboot. Like, it is a watch for that.
But it is the Kinnikuman origin arc that's currently on Netflix. That, mind you, I've never seen the original series of Kinnikuman from, I think it was like the 70s, 80s. But I did see the 4Kids edition of the sequel series, Ultimate Muscle. So just thinking of where I am right now with watching the origin arc, because mind you, it's not the same series as before, because for anyone who does know about the original Kinnikuman, there are a lot of things from that series that they cannot put out nowadays because of subject matter reasons. For starters, when a regular character is, let's call them a Yahtzee.
Yes, Yahtzee. We can't have another Yahtzee.
We can't have a Yahtzees as regulars come by all the time, especially when it's supposed to be kind of one of those more comedic ones.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, it's oh god, like watching Origin Arc, it's interesting because again, it's called the Origin Arc. So it's like, okay, we're learning about their beginnings, but we literally start right in the middle of like a big serious battleground, and then it's like, oh, now it's like they give you a quick history lesson of all the factions, catch you up with what the series is about, and then it's like, oh, now here's the problem. Like, who are all these people? And it's like everybody gives a quick introduction, and then we go into the actual fight after you get context of just like, oh, how are they connected? It's like, okay, so Buffalo Man's with Kinnikuman? No. He's a part of this Akuma faction, but he actually used to have an alliance with this faction and this other faction. But recently that broke up, so he ended up joining the other guys, but then he ended up leaving this faction to go back to the original guys, and Baribi became the captain over there, and now you're caught up. So here's where Buffalo Man's going to fight his next opponent. Like, okay. Okay.
I don't know what to say about that.
And it's like, I remember when I was just watching his son just, lazily go through trying to make his wrestling career happen while, crying all the time, making fart jokes and wanting to eat cow and rice. And now we're over here just like, okay, here is the entire history of this entire series. And now you can truly appreciate the origin. Like, okay. I feel like I got the origin to the origin, but let's keep going.
All right. With that being said, I'm going to chalk up this episode, and on this, our next episode is going to be available on June 19th. With that being said, this is Gaming Theater Podcast logging out. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Gaming Theater Podcast is hosted, created, produced, and edited by Leo Garcia, the Geek Scorpio. Our music is A Drinking Game. Stock media provided by Stormwave Audio /Pond5. Our cover art is by Adam Parker. You can find him at ParkerGFX on Twitter. If you want to send us some money to help with these episodes, you can do so at patreon.com/gamingtheaterpresents. Want to send support that doesn't hit your wallet? Please leave a review with wherever you hear your podcasts and share our podcast with your friends. It really helps out. Thank you for listening.